Mom, give me some fucking money, please! What are you doing? I'm your son!
The mother closed the door with a heavy heart. Her son's roar tore at her heart. She picked up the phone, claiming there was a thug trying to break in. The son desperately pounded on the door, begging to borrow $20, his agonized cries breaking his mother's heart. She frantically took out her wallet and pulled out the only $10 she had, but hesitated the next second, knowing this money could ruin her son's life. As she hesitated, her son's words brought her back to reality. His insults cut her deeply, realizing that after carrying him for 10 months and raising him with care, she was now just a lousy person in her son's eyes. The boy's pleas went unanswered, and instead, federal police arrived. He tried to beg his mother to save him, but until the car left, the tightly closed window never opened. However, it was because of his mother's cold-heartedness that he would later achieve an extraordinary life. Jim had been a troubled youth since childhood. Even when his backside was beaten raw, he persisted in defying his teachers. He and his friends were the school's infamous foursome, skipping classes and causing mischief, often being chased around. They fantasized about growing up quickly so they could escape others' control. Although Jim was a poor student academically, he harbored lofty dreams. From a young age, he loved riding and basketball. He was the best guard on the high school basketball team, with agile movements that opponents found hard to defend against. However, troubled youth will be troubled youth. His friends would sneak into the locker room during games to steal from the opposing team, which led to them being confronted after every match. Nevertheless, Jim and his group always found a way to escape these predicaments, playing ball on the court, fighting off it, then gathering to divide the spoils. He despised women who made money with their bodies, even insulting them with leftover snacks. He knew these addicts didn't deserve sympathy, but he couldn't imagine that one day he would be humbly begging them. Jim also had an invisible friend, once the team's best center, who unfortunately developed leukemia. No one in the school remembered him except Jim. Seeing his teammate growing thinner, Jim had an idea. He secretly took his friend out of the hospital and back to the familiar streets. For the first time since being hospitalized, his friend felt the outside air, but the once familiar street scenes were no longer there. Jim took a crumpled piece of paper out of his pocket and shared his article with his friend, then comfortably leaned on his friend's shoulder to listen.
Little kids shoot marbles where branches break the sun into graceful shafts of light. I just want to be pure. Just want to be pure.
Jim's childhood dream was to become a writer. He would record all beautiful things in his diary. Although he was a poor student, his words were like scattered stars, each sentence gleaming with wisdom. He would seize every spare moment to create. However, life always has its little interludes. Once, faced with a black man's disturbance and provocation, instead of getting angry, he happily played basketball with him. They went back and forth, evenly matched, showcasing the charm of basketball. His friend came at an inopportune time. They were going to attempt an impossible task. Seeing Jim with no intention of leaving, Mitch picked up his diary and read it aloud mockingly. Indeed, this tactic worked on Jim, but it also provoked his displeasure. Although they were close enough to share pants, Jim didn't want his friend to mock his dreams. Only after hearing the sternest warning did Mitch realize he had invaded his privacy. However, at 16 or 17, grudges don't last long. The four quickly stuck together again and completed that symbolic rite of passage into adulthood. Since they had grown up, it was time to do adult things. Bob took him to meet his own sister, and her best friend joined in. Although Jim became a man after that night, this youthful spirit was soon completely shattered. Jim's friend could no longer endure the torment of illness, and it was the first time Jim faced death directly. They drank heavily on a rainy night, almost to the point of madness. Jim let the rain lash against his face, but that pain was nothing compared to the agony in his heart. It was on that rainy night that Jim did something he would regret for the rest of his life. He found two small-time thugs on a street corner, wanting to buy something to numb himself. However, they didn't give him what he wanted, instead handing him a syringe. Jim wanted to refuse, but the next second he felt a warm current spread throughout his body. At that moment, All pain and guilt were washed away. From then on, Jim's personality changed dramatically, rambling incoherently every day. The side effects were deadly for Jim. He was often clear-headed and often confused, but even so, he still insisted on creating every day. However, as his drug use became more frequent, his writing inspiration dwindled, also bringing financial difficulties. To get more money, they even turned to the elderly. Jim pretended to ask an old man for directions, and when he let his guard down, his hidden companions rushed in. If they could rob enough cash, they would leave immediately. But this old man only had a few pennies, and he was met with merciless fists and feet. Jim's inspiration became less and less, with only emptiness occupying his mind. The intensity of the team's training was gradually increasing, but Jim's body was not enough to support it. He often hid in the bathroom to recharge himself, which also led to misunderstandings from the teachers. Although his desire for money had reached its peak, Jim still had his own bottom line. You can't blame me. I made a mistake.
You can't blame me for trying. Let's just pretend it never happened.
Jim wanted to quit this terrible demon, but he couldn't control his thoughts. He was often clear-headed and often seemed to be dreaming. Bob didn't want to see the three of them continue to fall. He tried to persuade Jim not to ruin his future. During the game, Jim and his friend were overcome by their drug addiction. The entire game, they seemed lost, forgetting even where the hoop was, and they were completely defeated by a third-rate team. More dangerous things followed. The principal walked into the arena with the police, but they found nothing after searching the entire locker room. It turned out that the principal had seen their transaction early in the morning and suspected Jim must be dealing drugs. Fortunately, Ped discovered the anomaly in time, so no evidence was found. But the principal still gave him a suspension. Jim, in a moment of heat, decided to drop out. Mitch chimed in beside him, even wanting to drag Bob along. But Bob had his own ideals. When it rains, it pours. His mother discovered his secret.
Oh, fuck you, Ma.
What? Get out of my house!
Oh, is that what you want,
Get
Ma?
out!
Jim was kicked out of the house, and the foursome became three. When they had no money, they stole cars, then used the money to buy more drugs, escalating from once every 3 days to twice a day. Jim was completely immersed in a hallucinatory world, unaware that his mother was washing her face with tears every day, praying to God to bring her son back. Jim's actions were not smooth. The stolen car was towed away by the police. They then targeted a restaurant. Mitch found a handgun in the counter and, after much effort, managed to open the cash register, only to find a few coins inside. Ped, hallucinating from drug use, remained lost in his own fantasies, even when Mitch threatened him with the gun. As the sound of sirens approached, the two had no choice but to abandon their companion and flee. The trio was now down to two. Watching Ped being taken away, they felt helpless and sought to numb themselves with alcohol. At that moment, a news story on TV caught Jim's attention. Bob had indeed achieved his dream, successfully making it to the All-American High School League. At that moment, a pang of regret rose in Jim's heart, for that honor should have belonged to them. That night, he secretly hid behind a tree, seeing his mother busy with life. He gave up the idea of going home. Jim's days became increasingly miserable. Being beaten every day had become routine. He finally collapsed in the snow, the cold rapidly consuming his body temperature. As death quietly approached, suddenly a figure appeared. It was the black man he had only met once. The next day, Jim didn't thank him. He woke up very anxious, searching his pockets but not finding what he wanted.
Where is it? You know what the fuck I'm talking about, Reggie. Where is it?
You mean this?
Give it to me. I'll cut your fucking throat, Reggie. Give it to me, all right?
But the man flushed the drugs down the toilet. He was dragged to the mirror like a chick, and the man made him see what he looked like now. He soon softened, because Jim was too much like himself. In Jim, the man saw himself when he was young. Someone had pulled him up then, and now he wanted to be the one reaching out. He locked Jim up, guarding the door day and night. Although Jim was in pain to the point of losing himself, the man showed no mercy. After several days of this cycle, he finally got through the most difficult time, and a long-absent smile appeared on his face again. The man had to leave that night. He told Jim he would be back at dawn, saying if the drug craving came back, he should take out his diary and write it down. The man locked Jim in the house, but his mind was blank, and the confined space made him feel irritable. Soon, the drug craving struck again. Jim searched all the cabinets and finally found the key to escape. He met the girl he had once humiliated on the street. Jim asked to borrow money from her. The girl calmly took out her wallet and threw the coins on the ground.
You bitch! You're nothing but a whore and I don't give a shit about your clothes!
Yeah, shut up, look at you. Oh, are you desperate now, baby? Who's the whore now?
Don't talk to me like that, you bitch!
Who's laughing, stupid?
This scene was familiar and ironic, but Jim could only react with impotent rage. After venting, he put aside his dignity and picked up the coins. Jim had become what he once hated most. To earn more money, he was even willing to sell himself. Jim found his friend again. Although he was also destitute, he decided to treat Mitch to a hit. The two scraped together enough for a small package, but just 2 steps out, they discovered the goods were fake. Seeing the deception exposed, the seller turned and ran, but the two were unwilling to let the cheater go. The 3 ran all the way to the rooftop.
I want the money. I want the money in the bags. What's the fucking money? No. I want it now. Oh, shit. You fucking killed him.
What the fuck do you mean we? I didn't even fucking touch him, Mickey. Don't you put that shit on me, man.
He abandoned Jim and ran. As soon as he went downstairs, he encountered the owner of the house, was pinned down and beaten until the police arrived. Fortunately, he didn't give up his companion on the rooftop. With nowhere else to turn, Jim finally knocked on his home's door. His mother put on the security chain after hearing him. Only after her son's continuous pleading did she slowly open the door. Jim wanted to borrow $5 from his mother, lying that he needed to leave because of trouble, but actually to get another hit. Mom instantly saw through his lie and mercilessly refused his plea. Jim cried heartrendingly outside the door, but his pleas didn't elicit sympathy from his mother, and he was eventually taken away by the police. Jim was sentenced to 6 months in prison for multiple charges. Everyone thought his life was over because it was easier to get high-quality goods in prison than outside. But during his sentence, he not only quit drugs but also used this time to focus on writing. After his release, he returned to this street. His friend tried to reconnect with him, but Jim drew a clear line. At 17, he completed his first work, the Basketball Diaries. Over the next 4 years, he created 3 poetry collections and recorded 4 albums. Jim boldly shared his experiences, and his unyielding spirit inspired generation after generation of young people. In our youth, we were all once innocent, yet adolescence is often labeled as rebellious. Jim, growing up in a single-parent household, faced life's uncertainties and longed for a pastor to guide him. However, when confronted with the loss of a friend, he tragically strayed onto a painful, dark path. In the film, Bob stands out as one of the few good kids, with clear, determined goals. The older gentleman, who had made mistakes in his own youth, beams with the most genuine smile when he sees Jim's successful turnaround. Perhaps we cannot fully comprehend the resilience of life, but remember, we only have one youth. Whoever you are, stay away from drugs and cherish every moment of your life. This film, released in 1995, is based on Jim Carroll's writings. For those interested, I strongly recommend watching the original movie. Leonardo DiCaprio's performance is truly captivating. Please remember to subscribe to my channel, where I'll be sharing more fascinating films with you. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you in the next video.